खालसा वाहिगुरू
Waheguru Ji ki Fateh Ji. Waheguru Ji Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Fateh Ji. Welcome to another session of Khoj Gurbani. This is Ravinder Singh joining you from Columbus, trying to facilitate this session. Tonight, we will be concentrating on the 17th Pauri from Asa Ki Vaar. And as it happens, it's really, it's fallen upon me, I guess, to do the initial translation, which I'm happy to do. And then we'll get into hopefully a useful dialogue afterwards. So I will just follow the same convention that the others have done, which is read through the sloks and the Pauri, and then come back, try and provide you with what I think the translation is. And then we will just open up to a conversation. ठीक है जी? So with that said, let me just start. श्लोक महला पहला जे मुहाका कर्म है पितरी दे अगे वस्त सिवाणी है पितरी चोर करे वडिये हथ दलाल के मुसफी एह करे नानक अगे सो मिले जे खट्टे काले दे महला पहला ज्यों जोरू सिर नावणी आवे वारो वार झूठे झूठा मुख वसै नित नित होए खुआर सुच्चे एह न आखिए बहन जे पिंडा धोए सुच्चे से नानका जिन मन वसया सोए पौड़ी तुरे पलाणे पौन वेग हर रंगी हरम सवारिया कोठे मंडप माड़ियां लाए बैठे कर पासारिया चीज करन मन भावंदे हर बुझन नाही हारिया कर फरमाए सिखाया वेख महलत मरण विसारिया जर आई जो बनहारिया. So these are the three passages that we will consider. So I'll go back to the first, which is Sulok Mela Pella, Je Mohaka Mohkare. So the English rendering, as I understand it, to put it very simply, is that if a thief steals to propitiate the gods for the welfare of his ancestors during the period of Pitru Pakshas, they say, I mean, this is some sort of a Hindu ritual during a 16-day lunar calendar. What Guru Nanak is saying is, well, if a thief steals to basically make the offerings, he's actually implicating his ancestors as well in the crime because they have now become partners in crime. And he goes on to say that the divine law will punish the middleman as well. In this case, the middleman happens to be the Brahmin. And it is interesting that Guru Nanak is using the expression "vadiya hath dalal ke," which is chopping his hands off. As I was reading this, I figured this must have been a common punishment in those days, or at least Guru Nanak must have been familiar with it. Nonetheless, I think he's chosen this analogy to just sort of stress the point. Then he goes on to say that the only offerings that are meaningful are those that are made with an honest living, that are the result of an honest living. And then on to the next one. He says, he talks about the recurring monthly period that a woman has. And in our society, in the old society, I suppose even now, in Hindu society, the period was considered, when a woman had her periods every month, she was considered impure or polluted. The point being made here is that this was a recurring cycle. It was a monthly cycle. So every month, the woman was sort of made to feel impure or polluted. And he's using this example to jump to the fact that those who are those, actually he uses the word mouth, those whose mouths are filled with falsehood, in other words, those who lie, who cheat, who deceive, will actually meet with a fate worse than a woman does, because they will not find a place in the thereafter. And then he talks about what purity really consists in. the purity of the mind. And he says that the mind doesn't get cleansed by bodily baths. Purity of the heart only comes jisman vasya soy. So one who's absorbed or connected or centered internally is where purity of the mind. When I say purity of the mind, I'm really talking about the prevarications of the mind, the perversions of the mind, because it seems to me that that is what Guru Nanak is really addressing, is the mind that is sort of perverted. And then in the Pauri, he actually uh, jumps to a comment on lifestyle, where he says that the possession of fine horses, ture plane paunve, I mean, horses who ride like the wind, and living in the comfort of homes, kote mandap maadiyan lai baithe kar pasarya, har rangi haram savarya, and cheej karan man pavde. In other words, you have access to all the comforts. You can buy, you can consume things that you desire. And through all of this, he says, har bujjan nahi harya. So while you may be in possession of fine homes and palaces, and you're riding horses that are saddled with very expensive saddles, you're consuming a lifestyle that is of your desire, you're really losing the game pretty much. And there he says harbujjan harya, and then what happens in the end is jar ai joban harya, you lose your youth. I think the suggestion here is that in the end you're left with nothing but regret. So that is the translation as I see it. And now I will just offer you what I think the message here is, or at least the takeaway message. In the first suluk, uh, he talks about living. I think he's talking about a thief stealing to do something that is considered auspicious, right? So the thief is stealing in order to kind of put in a good word for his ancestors, if you, as it were, through the office of the Brahmin. Now, it's quite another matter that the Brahmin is the one who is deceiving the poor individual. The fact is that what crossed my mind was, what if somebody steals the Guru Granth on the grounds that I really want to do part? It's a bit of a dilemma, because doing part is good, but stealing is bad. But Guru Nanak here is very clear about it, right? Um, so I think the message here is, uh, we also fall into that trap, I think, nowadays, when I think about living beyond one's means. So the person in this passage is willing to steal just so that he can actually engage in this social custom of offering food offerings, even though he can't afford it. I think there is a resonance here in our own lives. The hypocrisy of showing off. Uh, Take marriages these days. I mean, people are actually going into debt and going bankrupt, from what I know. So that's one thing. The other is the indesirability of dishonest living. That comes through very clear. That in whatever you do, your labor must be, the sweat of thy brow, as it says. So that's the second thing that he's talking about. The thing that I found interesting is that he's not saying anything about the practice itself. He has not commented on the practice. He's commented on how we go to what ends we will go to keep up with social ritual, right? That to me is the takeaway from this first slope. Then, of course, he comes down to the business of because Hindu society, is fixated on notions of pollution and purity, sutak. So what is, which action is pure, which isn't, how do you keep spaces pure, and so on. So you all know this, that old Indian society is very sort of obsessed with these ideas of purity and pollution. So he brings that up, but he's saying that it's not external. purity or external cleanliness that we are talking about. We are talking here about the purity of one's speech, the purity of one's demeanor, the purity of one's manner. How is one engaging with others? And I think he's pointing to the Brahmin, who's essentially full of deceit, full of lies, and makes a living off of people by fooling them. So I think that's the point he's trying to make here. And in the third, we've obviously talked about that. I mean, the fact that living a lifestyle that is very, very consumer oriented, as we all are doing these days. I mean, we live in a consumer oriented society. I think what he's recommending to us again is that I don't think he's condemning owning horses or saying that. What he's saying is that you're allowing yourself to get so wrapped up in your material life that you have really forgotten the real purpose for which you're here. So with that said, that's my take on this 17th Pauri and the associated sloks. With that, Harvinder, are you moderating? Am I moderating?
Anji, like as you feel comfortable, you can do that too.
Well, okay. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. Anji, Chetandeep?
Hanji, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Virji, when I was reading the Pauri, it felt like the last Pauri is how relevant is that to, like, it's so relevant to us today, right? Whatever we need, we order from Amazon, or we don't have horses, but we have expensive cars, we have homes, whatever we want to eat, we dish out, right? It's so applicable to us right now. Like, I can't even stress that enough. So, I mean, that's a sad reality. It's kind of this Pauri is an observation, but like when I look at it, it's a sad reality that plays out every day. But that's what it is right now. I have a question for you on the first slok. If you can explain the last line of the first slok in some depth, like what does it really mean? Nanak agya so mile je khatte kale de. Like what does it? Not the literal meaning, but what really it means. Thank you, Virji.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the Pauri is indeed a reality, but I would differ a little bit with you on that, and before I come to the Salok, and that is that I think what he's saying is that, in all of this, you have to sort of maintain a certain balance, and it is that balance that we've lost, right? So I would ask this group that's on this call right now, have you lost that balance? I mean, I think the fact that we assemble every week, and I talk to, I hope, quite a few of you offline, and I think I'm hoping that all of us are trying not to lose that balance, or at least not losing sight of that balance, and we are in our own way trying to kind of strike that balance, right? So yes, but it is indeed a reality, and it takes a lot of effort to be able to remain impeccable in the midst of, when you're surrounded by a culture like this, to be able to maintain and to be impeccable about your own sort of outlook is very tough, granted. And I think the fact that we have Sangat here is a great help. Now, coming to the Salok, Nanak agya so mile je khate kale de. Now, look, there are lines in here that, if you took the literal meaning, would point to a hereafter, a life hereafter. Wadiya Abdulal ke Musfi kare. Musfi is referring to Dharamraj, and he's talking about agge jaan diyan gallan ho rahiyan the. I am shying away from some of that interpretation myself personally. The way I look at this Salok is that he is speaking to people who are steeped in that kind of thought process, in that kind of belief system. He's really speaking to people who are kind of, very entrenched in the idea that there is a hereafter. We are talking about people 500, 600 years ago. I mean, why go that far back? There are people today who are entrenched in that thought process. My feeling is that Guru Nanak is using what is common parlance, what is common thought, and trying to make a point to those people. I don't think he's really elaborating whether there is a hereafter or not. It's like having a conversation with someone who believes in the hereafter, and he's saying to that person, well, regardless, if you want a place in the hereafter, because people are very concerned with what do I have to do in order to find a place in heaven, right? So that is the motivation behind most people's sort of religiosity. So it seems to me that in his time, this must have been even more prevalent than it is today. And God knows that it's very prevalent even now. So I get the sense that Guru Nanak is kind of pointing to these people and say, regardless, if you want a place in that, whatever it might be, whether it's heaven or a dargah, however, you've got to get your act together here. Khatte ka leze, honest living, right? Honest actions, honest speech. Your whole demeanor has to be rooted in truth if you want to really find a place. So to me, I'm not reading anything more than what is obvious in the line. Okay. Obvious in the line. Okay. So that's
can I drill down a little bit here?
That would be my response.
Can I ask a follow-up question on this?
Okay, you can, but I hope it's not good.
You can, but I hope it's not good.
No, I mean, my question is more on the Je Khatte Kale De. Instead of translating it as honest living, the reason being that at some level, honest living or morality is an external factor rather than something internal.
No, I think it did. I think it permeates both. We are not assuming a divide between inner and outer. Okay, morality stems from inside. It's not simply allegiance to something outside. And I think we've all talked about this. This is very much an inner process. Morality, as you said, has to come from within. So all of this includes your inner life as well. I mean, I hope I want to make that very clear.
ठीक है वीर जी, thank you.
Hanji, Dilpreet Singh ji.
Hanji Virji, that was a very good explanation. So there was another shabad which was coming to my mind was Peer Sadaye Mangan Jaye Taki Mool Na Lagu Paye Kal Khaye Ka Chathon De Nanak Rah Pachane Se. So again, I think it will shed some light. So on the first Pauri, Virji, what was coming to my mind, always has been bothering me that if you take an example of our Gurdwara, and if somebody is presenting the money and nobody cares how that money was earned, and our Gyani ji will do ardas that saying, oh, he is doing this, so give him this blessing, and then committee thinks that, oh, it is good money, let's use it for a welfare langar or anything. I think Guruji is pointing that, okay, all those parties will be equally responsible. And this is not going to bring any good to the society, or at the end, it is of no use. And then what the question I had with you was that this Pauri, the second shlok, has been in question for a long time for me. So the way I am looking at the second shlok is that there are two lines. The first line is Jyo Joru Sir Navani Ave Varo Var Jute Juta Mukh Vase Nit Nit Hoy Khwar. So I am thinking that these two lines are related to each other. In the first line, he is saying that periods are coming every month. And then in the second line, I think he's elaborating that the people curse these ladies and then they treat them impure and we call them impure. I think which he is saying is wrong. And then he says that we cannot call them impure, and then he defines the impurity. So this has been bothering me for a long time. So I think that these two lines are related, and the second line is explaining the first line, and he's saying that we cannot call them impure or treat them impure, and if we do that, if we bring it to our mouth, it is a wrong thing to do. So I just wanted your comments on that.
No, I think I couldn't have explained it better. So, yeah, I absolutely agree that really the impurities that Guru Nanak is talking about are not physical external impurities, something that even Chetandeep is. And I think we all ought to remember that. I mean, we should just take that, we should just make that assumption. I mean, Guru Nanak is really, as I said, he's talking about the perversions of the mind, not the body. I mean, he's very certainly concerned about, so purity to him is of the mind. Yes, no, indeed.
And then one more last thing, right? I went to one conference there in Toronto, and then there was a PhD lady, Bibi Jugraj Kaur, and she is PhD in religion there. And she made one presentation, and she referred to all of these tikas, and she referred that all these tikas are done by men, and then we have not done justice to the woman, and wherever Guru Nanak is giving more importance or using something against the woman, I think the male tikakar has downgraded it. And I think I reading this again, it points because they are not saying that we should not call them impure and all. Instead of that, they have twisted the meaning. All the male tikakars have done that injustice to women in many places. Thank you.
Hanji, thank you. Maybe we have. I think males have their own bias, obviously, and I don't think that we may think we are not without bias, but it may be an unconscious bias, very possible. But I think that as long as we can be, circumspect about it and try and become more conscious of our biases, at least we know where Guru Nanak stands with all this, right? And we are committed to that line of thinking. So thank you. Hanji, Gurdeep Singh Virji.
It's very good, actually. Every word you said is very convincing. Only this point again, Jute, the law of the nature. So lady is not polluted that time. Only the man who lies and who cheat and deceive, they are the one where the next line says, Jute Juta Mukhavase Nitid Hoy Khwar. They are going to be in trouble, not the ladies, because that's the law of the nature. So ladies are pure, whether they are in that period of time. Only I can see why they started that ladies to stay away from the kitchen and all that. They needed a rest at that time. If you ask any ladies, don't they feel fatigued? Don't they feel tired? So it was the one or the other way to give them a rest by saying, yes, we are polluted. But in fact, as Guru Nanak said clearly, no, they were not polluted. Only polluted are the one who is a deceiver, cheater, liar, and thieves. This is how I take this. Guru Nanak did a wonderful thing for women. So for women and men, no. Actually, soul is a soul. So they are either a man or a woman because the consideration Guru Granth Sahib is the soul. Sun mandal ik jogi baise nar na purkh kaho ko kaise. Trip amar jot rahe liblai surnath nath sache sarnai. That's only a physical form which says is a woman and a man, but internally, no, we are the same. So I think here Guru Nanak is a wonderful thing. But thing is, the problem is that they think, but they're talking Brahman here, but let's say it's not for Brahman, so-called or Paiji or any religious priest. They're doing the similar thing, even now these days. And but the other, my other fellow said, they're right, actually, when we go and give some money, donate money in Gurdwara, and think with the Paiji Ardas, you will get 100 times more. So that's why this is applicable to all of us even today, whether we are Sikh or Hindu or Brahmin or Muslim, it's applicable to all of us and will keep us on the right track. So I think here one place they said, Dede mange sasa guna sob kare sansar. When we give to Gurdwara, whether we steal the money we have given, but our internal is Dede mange sasa guna. We want to 10 times get more, and we want the people should appreciate that we get so much donations, this and that. That's the fact, but it's not the reality. It has no consideration. Durga, we have to say there's the day of justice. Judgment in Muslim says, our as yes, ethe. One is what we do today, tomorrow we will get. As you sow, so shall you reap. So this is applicable both the word here during this life and after death. That's where I understand. खट्टे का आगे सो मिले जो खट्टे काले के. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jiveer. Thank you very much. Hanji, Kulwant Kaur Bhen ji.
Hanji Veer ji, Khalsa Fateh ji. Yeah, I think when we are talking about this Shabad, John Joru se Navani Ave Barobar, I feel like Guru Sahib says, when he says Barobar means it's automatic, every month it comes, and she can't do anything, she has nothing to do with it. Jute Juta, the same way as she has menstrual periods every month automatically, the same way Jute persons, like deceitful peoples, they are, deceitful by nature, and they can't help it. They will just, do because it's their nature. It's their, if you say, it's in their behavior. It's in their nature, and they will, do deceitful things. And he's mentioning about, cleanliness. We need to, cleanliness does not mean external cleansing only. It's internal cleanliness, which means detachment from desired, prompted actions. We need to clean ourselves. It implies moral qualities. So people who are talking about internal cleanliness are not clean. We have to clean ourselves internally, not externally, but we have to clean ourselves internally too. Yeah, that's what I think. And also, I have a question here from the first shalok, where we say that Nanak age so mile je khate kale de. Does that mean that if we earn our, if we make offerings to our ancestors by honest living, do they get it, or does this mean that, or
Hanji, no, I think that's a good question.
Right.
If you just read the salok as
Yes.
it is, if you just read the salok as it is, and as I said earlier, he's not saying one thing or another about the practice itself, right?
Right.
I mean, he's silent on the practice. He's not saying whether doing pitri is good or bad.
Right.
He's talking about trying to do this through with stolen money or stolen goods, right?
Right.
He's
Right.
condemning the stealing. So I want to stay with the very literal reading of this salok, because I think he's really he's commenting on people's actions, right? He's not commenting on the actual ritual, right? There's no comment here. So now, as I said earlier, that he's probably, I think Chetanji brought up something similar, that he's probably talking to people who are trying to find a place in heaven, right?
Right.
So I think if he's having a conversation with people who have that belief system, it seems to me that reading this salok, he's simply telling them that if you are going to make this offering, then make it with honest money. Now, having said that, I think that when we look at Guru Nanak's teachings in their totality, then clearly you know that he does not condone these kinds of, he doesn't really, his philosophy doesn't really require us to do this sort of thing. It is all the cultivation of the qualities of the divine into ourselves, right? That is the bottom line with him, right? So if you were to place that larger philosophy or outlook or teaching that Guru Nanak has given us, and then read this, then you would read it somewhat differently, right? As opposed to if you just read it as these three lines, right? Without the context of the larger whole. So yeah, you can see it both ways. I am just choosing to stick with what he's saying right here without sort of going left or right, and saying, because I think the point he's making is important enough, because I want to take away what is he saying to me about my day-to-day life, right? I mean, I'm always interested in sort of seeing if I can pull something out of this that'll affect me. Well, clearly, don't steal and make an honest living. He's reinforcing that to me. Yeah. So that's how I'm seeing it. Although I think the way Chetandeep and Dilpreet and you are suggesting it, is certainly very valid, perhaps more valid. But that's just my choice for tonight.
Yeah, and also, after having a discussion with you, I think it might be our living should be supposed to be honest and truthful, and we reap what we sow. What we sow, that we will reap. We will not, we can't offer anything to our ancestors who are already gone. But
Clearly, that is obvious. I mean, we know that, right? Nobody believes that today.
yeah,
At least I don't. I mean,
yeah,
personally. But I'm just
yeah,
trying to read into the context of when this was written, the sort of
yeah,
society it was written in, the sort of people that he might be talking to. Because what happens is that we very often divorce this teaching from the historical context.
right.
We kind of extract these teachings out of the historical context and start
Mhm,
imposing this
mhm,
philosophical framework that Guru Nanak has given us, right? So,
right.
but I am trying to say, hey, let's see the context in which he's talking about this. To me,
Mhm.
that is just as important.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true. And also, I think that even though Guru Sahib just talk about this, we read in Gurbani, and we do the same thing also in Gurdwaras. We do langars on our parents' anniversaries, death anniversaries, and all that.
sure,
Those
sure.
we are at the same point, at the same place.
I mean, of course. I mean, it happens in my house. Yeah. I mean, even though I don't subscribe to it and I don't believe in it, and it irritates me, to be honest. But it happens, right? Because nobody listens to me. So, yeah. But there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. So, thank you very much, Ji. Hanji, Ranavir Ji.
Hello.
Hanji, Ranavir Ji. React your observations.
Hanji, can you hear me?
Hanji.
Hanji, I think the everybody has made a very good contribution to the excellent presentation you made. I don't have anything more to add, except one point which we have been debating for for, for the last 10 minutes, and that is the line Nanak agge so mile je khatte kale de. As you pointed out just now that maybe Guru Nanak Sahib was talking to that audience which believed in that system. The question which bothers me is that on one hand we present Guru Nanak Sahib as a very outgoing, outspoken person who stood up and spoke about the social evils which were prevalent. Can you hear me? Sorry, my
Yes,
mic
yes.
was which were
Yeah.
prevalent at that time. So when he's talking to this audience, how could you expect Guru Nanak to accept the fact that these people believe in the system? Unless Guru Nanak agreed with them. Otherwise, he could challenge that thing too. So that thing, it's a little unsettling to me that we say that Guru Nanak was talking that context. Yes, we take with the message is much broader message of good Sikh philosophy is there that we should be good, dan karo, karo, all those things. But when you read the message or his shabad or what he's communicating, I wonder why Guru Nanak didn't challenge those people with whom, as we are saying, they maybe he was talking to those people who believe in that. So that thing is, I would like to see how do you respond to that.
Well, I mean, maybe he was, right? Maybe he was challenging them. What we are reading is a couple of lines that he recorded, right, at any given moment. And I think that there are ways to persuade people. And my sense is that Guru Nanak's way of persuading people was not to throw the gauntlet as much as to challenge them to think about their own beliefs, right? So it's a lot easier. And I think that he had this way about him of challenging people without being how should I say, without being that strong about it. Because can you imagine having to challenge people's existing beliefs every moment of the day? I don't think it's possible today. You can't have a conversation with anyone if you are going to start off with the position if you were having a conversation with me, for instance, if you tell me that my whole framework doesn't, it is not right, I'm not going to have that conversation with you. It'll stop right there. So I think Guru Nanak is a lot wiser than all of us put together. So maybe he had a strategy and a way of doing things. You see what I'm saying? You can't just confront someone and say, hey, by the way, you know what you're thinking? You're nuts. Basically is what you're saying. That why didn't he tell these people, what are you thinking about? It doesn't happen that way. Nobody would have listened to him. I don't think so. But I think he had a way of persuading people to really give it a thought. That's my sense.
Could it be our intellectual bias we bring in here because we intellectually don't believe in that, and because our knowledge, our intellect is very limited and is defined by what we have been trained or through the environment we have brought up? Could that be the reason that we don't accept or we make these type of suggestions that on one hand Guru Nanak Sahib can challenge, Guru nu challenge jo karde jo bhi FTMR pe Quranic, on one hand Guru Nanak Sahib was so open, outspoken, and then he would shy away here just to be very strategic to convince people?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that we are all looking through the lenses of our own, worldview, and we live in a time. I personally would say to you that we are perhaps too intellectual, and that is part of our problem. We've spent 4 years on this forum intellectualizing Guru Nanak's teachings. If you ask me, that is the biggest problem we have. You'll never find a solution. There is no, I don't know what we do in our personal lives, but my point is we are living in the head far too much. That's one thing. The other thing is that we live in a world where scientific materialism, the view of science, which I certainly subscribe to it. I am very much influenced by the worldview around me, as are you and as are the others. So ideas like offerings to the hereafter, I'll give you an example. So here he's saying he's not challenging it, but then remember there is the Sakhi about Hardwar, where he is challenging it. So all I'm saying is that Guru Nanak is a great teacher. He's looking at the audience and acting accordingly. To my mind at least, because he's challenging people outright in Hardwar and in Makkah and in Kurukshetra, right? But he's not here. So I think this is something of the teacher in him. He has a way of doing it. But I want to reiterate again that our habit of intellectualizing, and then not only intellectualizing, but abstracting these teachings away from the historical context, I think personally is where we are going astray. Because we are in effect saying that the scripture from which I'm reading here is just a very passive document, which it isn't. It is a reaction to the society around it. It is reacting to the culture around it, and the scripture comes into being to challenge you to change, right? So, and what we have done is we have completely tossed out history. We are refusing to look, because if you look at the words in this salok, if you take them literally, you would be forced to concede that he's talking about the hereafter. Nanak agge so mile, agge ki hai, agge te ohi gall ho rahi hai na jehde o pe karde ne. So, but we don't want to go there because we might sound, you believe in that? No, I don't believe in that. But I think in this context, that is what is being said. But that's my view.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, ji. Haji, Ripudaman Singh ji.
Ji, actually, I'm sitting in a plane, so if I talk, I don't get disturbed.
All right, have a safe flight, man.
Thank you.
All right. Haji, who else is here? Haji Veerji, Gurjeet Singh Veerji. I just noticed you.
Haji Veerji, Vaheguru Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ki Fateh. Haji, it's pretty interesting discussion. I'll start from, as you said, these are historical things from which all these religions further went astray, and Guru Nanak is only trying to bring us to the line. There is a shalok, he says, Katha kahani bedi ani pap pun bichar. people have read the Ved, but they are not considering that same way as those people used to. There has been a drift from the reality. De lena lele dena nark surg avtar. If this business is continuing that you give, there is a person in the center sitting who think he knows about it, and he tells you, you have to do this action. And then this person is forced to steal from someone's house and do it because he was told that he will get something in reward in the future. So this is Dan, but the whole of Gurbani relies on Gyan, which I think he's trying to bring in the whole shalok. Ki je moha ka is actually moha, that if someone is stolen thing, a moha has stolen and is giving, and he's thinking he's doing a right action because he's doing on who someone has actually preached him that. So we should be very careful that if we are trying to preach that if we get any daan, our material will never let us free from whatever vices we have. We have to nanak agge so mile. If this fact is to be considered, you have to do je khatte ka le de. Firstly, you have to do kal kamai. Even when we said we have 3 pillars, kirt karna is not only doing honest living, it's also doing honest shabad vichar. So I think he's pursuing that. Even Faridji says, Amal je kite duni vich dargah aaye kam. They will certainly help you there to whether liberation or to a rebirth. And then this Joru Sirnavni, Ave Varuval, the way I understand it, that there is a hukam going on, and if you don't understand hukam, you will pass orders like this, what has happened there, that there is a sect or some people saying, the women can't go to a temple, can't go there because of this. But the problem is that this is natural. It can't be stopped. Whereas jhutha mukhvasa can be stopped. There is a remedy for this. There is no remedy for the other one. That there is another, then he says, Harangi Haram Savarya. If those people were that conscious, why they let the king have 25 wives or concubines or whatever? They didn't stop him there. They just are trying to pursue people on the religious ground. So these are the 2 factors which I think he's trying to tell that this cannot be stopped. Same way we think about there's a hukam going on. We can't go against that hukam. That's going on. It will go like that. But yeah, there is something in our control that we understand and align with it. So that's my intake from these Pauris.
Thank you very much. Harvinder Singh, do you want to add anything?
I am good, I think. If you want to do a second round with Chetan, starting with Chetan.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. By the way, I think we are having a really interesting conversation. So in the remaining time, I just want to go around for the second time and see if you have any closing thoughts on what we've just discussed. So I'll start with Chetan Deep again. Hanji Maharaj.
I think in the first round, you mentioned something about balance when we spoke about the body. And when I said it's kind of a sad reality or an observation that how we live. And you threw out a question saying balance or how do this group maintains the balance. So just thinking about it, I'm not sure if balance is the right word. Like, for example, some people, or rather we try to achieve balance saying we'll do Nitnem in the morning, 2 hours, or we'll do some meditation and then we'll go out to work. We categorize things and we're trying to balance. In my opinion, or the way I see things is there is no balance. Like we speak about work-life balance, right? So either there is work or there is life. There is no balance. So what I like to think is that balance is actually an illusion. It's part of the same thing. What is really required is an understanding. Once we have that, instead of balance, substitute that with understanding. If we have understanding in our life, then whatever is written here, we keep on doing whatever we do, we live in houses with all the comforts. Once we have that understanding, then the real game starts instead of a balance. Back to you.
No, thank you. I would certainly agree with you that balance, that understanding, but that is fundamental, Chetan. The awakening is fundamental to everything that Guru Nanak is saying, right? He's not asking you to do anything other than wake up. So understanding, awakening, and while you were talking, I was thinking maybe equilibrium might be a better word, sort of maintaining your equilibrium in everything that you're doing. So, but thanks. No, that was a very good point. Hanji Dilpreet Singh ji.
Hanji Virji, it was a good learning for me. The way you explained that let's move away from the Pitri process and not question if it is right or wrong, and see what is the message to us. I think one message to us is that in our day-to-day conversations with others, we can use this approach to make it as a healthy conversation so that the other person is not putting their shutters down and the conversation continues. And I think the core message he's giving is that in our day-to-day life, he's saying that if you are doing a so-called good deed as per religion or your belief, and you think or you hope that it will bring some good to you or a good in any way, but if you use the resources earned the wrong way, then he's saying it will not bring any good, or it cannot bring any good. At the end, it will bring punishment to us. So I think that is the underlying teaching, that we have to use the right resources earned the right way, then only the right outcome will happen. If we are using the resources earned the wrong way or wrong resources, then the outcome will not happen. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Ji Dilpreet. Hanji Gurdeep Singh Virji, closing comment.
Yeah. Other place it says, no, Dilpreet said very good. I am with him. Advice is Jeevat Pitar na mane ko muhe srad karai. Pitri bapare ko kare kaua kukar khai. This is the answer. One part. This is from Bani answer to this, that we should not believe feed pitars and their ancestors. That means the second thing we said khate kale de. What khate kale de? It's not the materialistic money. It says okay, naam tan bin hor bikhya sab jaan. Naam tan. That's what will go help us here and there if you believe in past life. But I will say that's why Gurbani says naam tan bin hor bikhya sab jaan. Maya moh jale abhiman. Bikhya ke tan sada dukh hoye. Na saath jaye na prapat hoye. We are not talking about materialistic money here. That's what we should. Another place no. Why Guru Nanak feeded those hungry saints with 20 rupees? So that's what when we give money to Gurdwara or any, our purpose is not for Paiji or for not people who are already rich. Our purpose is to give it to the needy pupils, poor people, feed them. That's the message we got from Guru Nanak. We say, Paiji Ardas Karo, do you think it's going to fulfill our desire or it's going to bring us prosperity? By Paiji saying, say, Ji ki birtha hoye so Guru pe Ardas kar. To do a prayer, we have been told by Guru Granth that we have to do by ourselves, not through some mediator. That's what you people have the similar opinion you already mentioned. I understand. The third thing, tan man tan, sab saap gur ko hukam manya paiye. So I think those 3-4 instructions we get from Guru Granth Sahib will be clear. Here they didn't have much choice. See, at one place Gurbani says, "E mandavni Satgur Pai." Mandavni means Bujarat. E Mandavni Satgur Pai Gur Sikhan Laddi Pahal. So this is a Bujarat by Guru Nanak at this place, where this is Slok Mala Pehla. But then we obviously we have to read the second Guru, third and fourth and fifth. You will get the right answer of all these lines from the Gurbani by reading the other Gurus. Sorry if I made any mistake, but I don't feel sorry if anything I mentioned is as per Guru Granth Sahib, that I think we should abide or we should try to learn more and discuss like we are doing. I appreciate, I really learning from all of you.
Thank you, Virji, and no need for any kind of apology. We appreciate your insights. Kulwant Kaur Bhenji, closing thoughts as we wind down.
Hanji, Viji, last party. I think what I have taken from it is like Guru Sahib mentioned, Ture, Plane, Veg, or Kote, Mandap, Maria, all these are resources. We accumulate these resources, and in the process of accumulation, we just forget the ultimate reality, which is, we eventually one day we have to leave all this, and we forget about, we have to leave all this behind and waste our time. We are losing our life just in the pursuit of accumulating wealth. That's what I'm thinking about the last party.
Thank you, Ji. Ripudaman's on the plane. Virji, Gurjeet Singh Virji, closing comment.
Hanji Virji, same thing ji. Guru Nanak ji has also said us that Papa Bajo Hove Nahi. This the external wealth, you have to do some sort of crime in the long run to get it accumulated. Moya saath na jai. But there is something which goes. There's certainly which goes with us. This doesn't go, so we shouldn't be doing any sort of action which put us in this line that Papa Bajo Hove Nahi, Moya saath na jai. We should also accumulate something which will go with us. ठीक है जी, वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी का फतेह।
Harvinder Singh, closing comments.
I am good, Virji. So just like a clarification,
You're not good then.
Jar I Joban Harya. Is it referring to our just the mental state, or this is really our age in practical terms?
Well, look, I've been very insistent, at least tonight, that I'm taking a very sort of literal view of these lines. And I think the reason I'm doing that is because I think that we just are not willing to concede that Guru Nanak could, in fact, just talk about day-to-day things as well. We think that everything he said had to be sort of very abstruse and very philosophical. It's very possible that he's just saying something that is very clear and that we are trying to obfuscate it. But I'll let somebody else respond to that. Does somebody want to take on Harvinder's question?
Virji, I think it's as we have spoken about it many times, it's poetry, it's layered. We have to start with the literal meaning because that's where the words are. They are literally there. But again, it's a layer. We have to peel the layers off.
Yeah, sometimes it could only be one layer.
It's quite possible, definitely.
Yeah, that's my position. I'm just telling you how I'm thinking about it tonight.
I think you are absolutely right in this case. I am on the same page. The reason is because this is a fact of life, right? Yeah. We are born and we died. It's a fact of life. Why shy away from saying that, we'll be gone one day?
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard fact.
Yeah. So, Harvinder, the answer is that there are many layers to that meaning. So it does mean old age, and it does mean the loss of your youth, because that is something that concerns us too, right? So every religious prophet has sort of spoken to these sorts of issues.
Can I say something?
Anji,
dekho, there are two parts of one is spiritual, one is of day-to-day and normal life. Now, definitely, we are younger and then we get old. But spiritual part, Gurbani says, Gurmukh buddhe kade nahi jina andar surat gyan. Manmukh bird saman hai. So in spiritual, you are never old. Who has into the realm? But in our normal day-to-day life, yes, jare ai jovan harya. Bal jwani ar bird fun teen avastha jaan. Guru Tegh Bahadur ko nanak nar bhavre kyun na paje bhagwan. So here means to give us a warning or make us a conscious that your youth is going, man, and now the old has come. Sirkampyo pag dagmage nan jot te heen ko nanke bid pei to una hadasleen. Even I can give you my own example. I'm 70, okay? Early 70, but when I put my steps somewhere and I feel like to fall. So that's
Vijay, you're young. 70 is
okay,
young.
that's why I appreciate the comments. But I'm the reality, when I see myself and read this Gurbani, Guru Tegh Bahadur, I say, oh yes, Sir Kampio Pag Dagmage Nan Jyotihin. No, I had to get my cataract operation this month. Sorry to tell you a little bit of my personal life, but
no, that's quite okay.
Gurbani is helping a lot. It consoles. Rather than we get, depressed and all that. You say, no, man, it's a part of life. Let's see Guru Granth Sahib, what it said.
Hanji.
I think it helps a lot of our day-to-day lives.
Thank you very much, Ji. We have a couple of minutes to spare. Thank you very much for a great conversation, and we shall reconvene next week.
I think we miss Ranaveer Ji for last week.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ranaveer Ji.
No, that's fine. No, very good feedback. And the last Gurdeep Veer ne ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, he read few of the Shabad lines from Shabad. Those Shabad, those lines, what he read are so clear. I think, but our tendency is we intellectualize those things and talk about the different type of depth we want to go. Message, take by the sub message, and the message here is very clear. But as you pointed out earlier, that we do too intellectualization of these things, and sometimes I wonder, Guru Nanak Sahib, even he would be puzzled about what is going on. So that's my take.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. ठीक है जी. Thank you very much, Veer ji, and thank you everyone. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.